young back cut down the defensive end, but there's a beautiful banana.
There's 3 quarterbacks in this football team. Whichever one starts, whichever ones don't, we'll back them up. Period. Cut and dry. Next.
Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Welcome to the TW Podcast. Today, I'll have my friend Matt Marchel join the podcast. We're going to talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We'll go through parts of the movie we really enjoyed, as well as talk about odds and ends of other movies towards the end of our 35-40-minute conversation today. Today is April 23rd, Thursday. That means the start of the 2020 NFL Draft will be tonight. Pretty excited about it, as you can tell by all my New York Jets stuff I got on today. I'm expecting the New York Jets to make a pretty good draft pick today. If they don't, I'll be rather upset. But I'll probably go into the NFL Draft, go over probably the top 10, 12 players, or at least the ones that everybody's talking about. I won't go into a full who I think is getting drafted where. But I'll probably talk about the New York Jets pick, who I think they should pick. We'll see who they actually do. But that will be the podcast for today. As always, we'll have the Netflix movie of the week, as well as a quick 3 and out. But here we go. Let's get right into my conversation with Matt Marchel. All right. Now joining us on the podcast today, we got Matt Marchel. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Travis, happy to be here. Haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you. I see that beard is nice and thick still, just like I like it.
She's been growing. But today, me and Matt are going to talk about a movie called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Matt, what your initial reactions? Just we both watched it last night. Again, for me, it was probably like the third time.
Yeah.
But just a quick idea. How did you like this movie?
Well, I'd like to start by saying I liked it a lot. I like most of Quentin Tarantino's movies, right? So I went in with a positive attitude, and honestly, if you're gonna go watch a movie, that's part of it, right? You gotta, if you go in there thinking it's gonna be not good, it's not gonna be good, right? So, but I liked it a lot. The dialogue in all of his movies are great, and you put Brad Pitt and Leo in the same movie, and it's gonna be a hit.
There's no question about that. That's where in the movie, even the narrator, which is Kurt Russell, like everything about the way that actual conversations would go in real life is like how they go in a Quentin Tarantino movie, which I would say I'm a big Tarantino fan. I'm not saying I love every one of his movies,
Yep.
but, I watch a lot of Inglourious Basterds. It's like one of those movies that if I'm bored, I'm watching it. But that's just Tarantino. But let's get right into the nuts and bolts of things here. First of all, the runtime is 2 hours and 41 minutes. How did you feel about 2 hours and 41 minutes?
It doesn't bother me. If I like a movie, I'll watch a 5-hour-long movie. Where we're at right now in the quarantine and with all this stuff, the longer the better, I think. I'll stay up till all hours of the night. It's kind of a weird time right now, right? Because it's light later and later and later, and I don't want to start a movie like that when it's daylight outside, right? So I got to wait till 9:30 to start it, and then I'm up till midnight or whatever. But again, at this point, day is night, night is day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're all the same to me.
Yeah, it's all blended together. We just got to figure it out. But I feel the same way. I mean, a lot of people would say the movie was kind of slow, which is fine. I like a slow build movie, which usually makes the ending that much better. But 2 hours and 41 minutes, I didn't feel like the movie was that long. It felt I was kept going in the storyline. But here's the description of the movie. A faded television actor and his stunt double strive to achieve fame and success in the film industry during the final years of the Hollywood's golden age in 1969 in Los Angeles, California.
Summer of 69. Great summer.
Great summer, right? The movie takes place like they start telling the story a lot in like February of earlier that year and then get to August, kind of loosely going upon the family Manson murders and everything, which people, if you're listening to the podcast and didn't think you were going to get spoiler alerts, let you know right now, you're going to get a spoiler alert. All right.
Well, I mean, I would say this, Travis. I would argue it's not a spoiler. I would think that the movie's better if you know the context. If you know that it's about kind of vaguely the Manson family, right? Like, if you don't, to me, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. I'd have a tough time recommending this movie to somebody based on the length, based on the time, the slow pace, like you said. And if they don't know it's about the Manson family and they don't have any background about that, about Sharon Tate and the murders and all that, it might not make sense,
Right.
It might be a little harder to grasp, but you got to be a high-level movie watcher, I think, to really get everything out of Quentin Tarantino movies.
There's no question, because in a Quentin Tarantino movie, there are so many Easter eggs throughout the movie, whether, it's something to do with like the cigarettes they use in every movie are like the same brand. Like, he uses the same brands in every movie, no matter if it's Django Unchained back in the day or something new.
Red Apple tobacco.
Yeah. Here's like a good one I noticed last night while watching it, because I watched Inglourious Bastards the other day. One of the movies, when he goes to Italy and does the spaghetti western, the director's name is Antonio Margheriti, which if you
Margheriti.
Margheriti. So,
Margheriti.
so I was sitting there, I'm like, oh, that was the guy, the fake director they're pitching Inglourious Bastards. Like, this is like just those little things that tie things in. I really enjoy. Like, I wouldn't even picked up, like, first time I watched it, I didn't even pick up on it. So, it's kind of one of those things. If you watch a couple Quentin Tarantino movies back to back, you pick up on some things.
And a lot of the same actors too, right? I mean, Leo was in Django. Four Horse Sally or whatever from the Hateful Eight,
right?
Is Kurt Russell's wife
Yes,
in this one?
Bell.
Yep. And
I'm with you. Like,
it's great.
So much that goes on.
Yeah.
This movie is kind of split up into like three perspectives the entire movie. You got the Rick Dalton character by Leonardo DiCaprio. You got Brad Pitt's character. What the hell was his name?
Cliff Booth.
Cliff Booth might be one of my favorite characters of all time.
I love, he just, can I add something here?
Of course you can.
I like, he's almost too good to be true, because he's just a cool cat, doesn't really give a crap what's going on. He's just driving around being a beauty. But then there's this little nugget that he may or may not have murdered his wife and got away with it. Like, it means nothing to the movie, but it kind of gives you that question mark. Okay, maybe he's not squeaky clean, cool guy, but I just love it.
Yeah, like everything they tell you about the guy, you just love everything instantly about him. Like, he's got a dog, just loves his dog. He's great with the dog.
Yep.
And then, the only negative things they show are that he might have killed his wife, which, he was like, they talk about how he was a war hero. I mean, they kind of like go into all these things. They're like, oh, he's good too. But, I don't know. I mean, just the way that he goes throughout beating the hell out of people just shows you there's a little bit of shit to him.
Just carries himself, with confidence. But, Teddy Roosevelt, right? Walks softly, carry a big stick. Like, he will beat your ass if he has to. And one of the best parts I thought, or one of the parts that I thought was hilarious, he drops Rick Dalton off at the movie set, goes home to fix his satellite, grabs a beer, puts it in the holster, does some parkour stuff to get up onto the roof, pops his shirt off, drinks a beer, smokes a cigarette, fixes the cable. Like, to me, it was just hilarious. Fixes the satellite.
That's for, like, there's so many, like, if you ask me, I mean, Brad Pitt won the Oscar for his supporting role, and it was his first one he ever won. And it makes sense. Like, you cared, like, the lead actor in this movie is Rick Dalton, played by Leo. But, like, you like Cliff Booth more than you like anybody else in the movie, because the third person's view is Sharon Tate's view of everything going on.
Yeah.
But, it's such a slow build. Like Rick Dalton's character to me is like just their friendship, their buddy friendship is like a legit friendship. Like, that's one like me and you would have. Like, there's some play back and forth. There's some fun. There's some laughter. There's going to be some beers. Like, there's those aspects of everything.
Gotta be. Yeah, that is a great relationship they have.
There's the scene where he's sitting there watching the FBI show that he's on, like the premiere of the show, and like they're showing like what's going on, and then all you hear is like their dialogue of like them breaking down. He's like, "Man, that was badass. How you just shot. I like that angle." Like, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's how you talk with your buddy. Like, then Rick Dalton sees some guy, he goes, "Man, that guy's a jerk. I hate that guy." Like, that's just how dudes talk, and that's where, the Quentin Tarantino deal, like, it's how real people are. It's not just perfect movie magic on it.
Right, and he captures it too. You know, when at the end of the era, when he has to fire him or not fire him, but they have to part ways. And there's only one way to get, you know, to end this relationship, and that's have a good old drunk. And they just suck back margaritas all night. That's good stuff.
It's truly the only way to go out. So,
yeah.
I mean, we kind of covered it. I think we'd both say that our favorite character was Cliff Booth. You know, but like there's so many like just random characters that show up that are just dynamite. Like Al Pacino is just out of nowhere. Like you didn't expect to see Al Pacino, but there he is. And he's just playing this guy who just really wants Rick Dalton to get himself into these Italian movies, as he likes to say in the movie. You know, there's just a bunch of like, I wouldn't say always big names, but like even like Luke Perry and all these guys, like it's a cast that's like ridiculous. Like if they were all getting paid full salary, you wouldn't be able to afford the movie kind of deal. But since you're Quentin Tarantino, everybody wants to be part of something you do. So like,
exactly.
Woodwork.
Kurt Russell, I mean, he's a huge name. Margot Robbie is choice, you know.
Choice.
And she like I looked up. You know, I want to get a little more information. For the record, I did my research. I wanted to be knowledgeable on this podcast, and I had to pay $20 to watch that movie last night. So whenever you can reimburse me, go ahead and send it my way. But Margot Robbie actually kind of sort of looks like Sharon Tate looked in 1969. So that was kind of cool. Like they have the similar features. Because I had no clue, right? I didn't really know who Sharon Tate was. I knew the name, right. You know, but yeah.
Well, I brought it to a next level because I also watched kind of the actual family Manson, like the murders, and like there was a show I was watching on Amazon Prime that kind of went through like the whole gambit of what went on. Like in the movie, they don't really touch much on Charlie Manson like at all. Now there's a couple of deleted scenes apparently that deal with more of him in the movie, but was kind of just like on the cutting room floor. Like it doesn't really play into the storyline, but you know, the entire movie, like we're sitting there and like, for me, I already know what happened in the family Manson murder. So like, I'm just sitting like, oh, I know what it's coming down to. Like, you know, the entire time, like, you know, what's going to happen. But
I think that makes it better. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like if you've never heard the name Sharon Tate, they never really directly reference Charles Manson. You know what I mean? So you got to know a little bit. I was watching it with a buddy last night. Our quarantine buddy. We share a backyard, so you know we only see each other. And he, you know, the first scene he goes, "Oh, is this a Western?" I'm like, "Oh God." Hit pause. Had to explain it to him. You know what I mean? Like what is happening? Not what's happening, but that it's about these murders. Like, oh, Charles Manson. Okay, whatever. You know.
Right. Now, a side note right now. Okay, I also read Quentin Tarantino has already written 5 episodes for Bounty Law to be a TV show based on the TV show that made Rick Dalton famous in the 50s.
I'll pay whatever it costs to watch that spinoff on Amazon Prime or whatever it may be.
No doubt. But I read that and I was like super pumped up about it. Like, you know, kind of like you get to but back to where I was with, you know, the slow build. Like you expect, you know, what's going to happen. The first time I saw it, I saw it in the movie theaters with my brother, who does not like Quentin Tarantino movies, was not exactly gung-ho to go with me. But by the end of the movie, he loved it. Because, like, you think you know what's going to happen at the end. Like, completely think you know.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's history, right? Like,
right.
It happened, like, but I like the twist on it.
Because the entire movie, you're sitting there, you're like, this is not a Quentin Tarantino movie. I haven't seen, like, ridiculous amount of blood being thrown around or, you know, like, the dialogue's very Quentin Tarantino, but there's no craziness to it yet. And then all the way up to, like, the last 15 minutes is just, like, brutal murder scene.
So the dog, again, these are spoilers now at this point, folks, right? Like, it is what it is. The dog shredding that guy to pieces, one. The absolute tight spiral that Brad Pitt throws at that soup or that dog food can at that girl's nose is hilarious. And then when he smashes that redhead girl's face on every surface of the room, I was laughing my face off, but it was still kind of intense because you're like, I don't want Rick Dalton or Clint Booth to die, you know?
Right. Well, that's I mean, during the whole scene, like, the Cliff Booth character right now is on an acid dip cigarette. So, like, he is, like, legitimately out of it. but just starts to remember when he went to the Spawn movie ranch, when he went out there and basically saw everybody, which that scene in general, let's kind of back it up to that scene.
Yep.
Because,
reel it back.
Yeah. So like when he goes to this spot, you're sitting there and you're like, man, this is eerie. Like something's gonna happen. This is one of the scenes in the movie where you're like, okay, he wants to go see George Spahn, who's the guy who owns the ranch. Like they think in his mind, he's either dead or something's going on in a fashion.
Yeah.
And like,
for sure. And it kind of
everybody's
is, right?
playing it off. Like you think that he's dead. Like he starts walking to that back room and like he's taking his time. Like he's really like drowning every ounce of us to like, dude, what is he gonna see when he opens this door? And when he first opens it, all he sees is the body laying on the bed. And you're like, dude, he's going to turn him over. He's just going to be like, just a
rotted corpse.
Color, just dead as a corpse. Like, it just turns out he's blind.
Yeah. And that's, I like the point that you brought up there, because that is an intense scene in the movie. You know, something weird is happening. All those dirty hippies are staring at him in the distance there. Like that was kind of creepy, but I love how Clint Booth is just steady as a coffin nail.
The best part is like there's a rat on a sticky trap and they're like screeching. He just like looks at it, like he gets instantly uncomfortable, like looking at what's going on. He's like, do I even really want to go back there? But he's like, I'm Clint Booth. Like I have to go back there.
But again, rewinding, even the Dakota Fanning is in that movie in that little scene. Like she's one of the big time child stars of our generation.
There's no doubt about that. And even part of that hippie group, if you know who Kevin Smith is, the guy from Jay and Silent Bob, his daughter, who's kind of an actor, she's in there as well. In which he was in the new Jay and Silent Bob, which could be a whole different movie for a whole different time, a whole different audience out there.
Speaking of Silent Bob, if I cross my eyes, you guys are absolutely indistinguishable.
That's thank you. I'll take that as a compliment today.
Yeah.
But just even like after he goes, he talks to George. George's like, there's nothing wrong with me. I enjoy my time here. Leave me the hell alone. And he leaves. Like instantly, everybody in Spawn Ranch hates him.
Yeah.
And he's got to walk to his car, which is at least 100 yards away. And which by the time he rolls up to that car, there's a knife in his wheel, which is not even his car. It's Rick Dalton's car. And he just sees this hippie sitting on this fence post, just laughing and chucking it up. And then just another scene of this is a bad dude. Like I watched the scene because I couldn't stop laughing when Cliff Booth goes and gives him one punch. Like the dude goes off his feet and they just show the feet going in the air and he just falls.
It reminds me of the Brad Pitt from Snatch or the Brad Pitt from Fight Club. Yes. You know what I mean? Just punching from his hip, hitting the guy square. Oh, it's great.
And just gets him in there. I mean, there's that scene. I really enjoy that one. And I can't remember if this was before that scene or I think it was because it was when he was fixing the house where he does the flashback.
Yes.
And he goes to the set of the Green Hornet and he's going to get into a battle with Bruce Lee, which I don't even think at any point in time in the movie they call him Bruce or Bruce Lee. They just call him Kato.
Yep.
But I heard Bruce Lee's daughter was upset that her dad was portrayed in such a terrible way. But
and he was.
The fact, like, do I believe Bruce Lee sat there on a movie set and was cocky and said he could beat up Cassius Clay? Yeah, I bet you he did say something like that. And the way that Cliff Booth responded to it, like, you'd be staying on the man's trunks as he stood over.
Yeah.
Like,
just calls him to the carpet immediately, laughs in his face. Like, that was a good scene. I took some notes. Like I said, I took this seriously. I took some notes last night, and I put scene versus Bruce Lee and a big smiley face because that might be my favorite scene in the whole movie.
No, that was my favorite scene too, just because he's so ridiculous in it. He's like when he starts making fun of martial artists, he just calls them "you fancy dancers." Yeah.
And then the Australian gal comes out, Kurt Russell's wife, and yells at him, and I'll handle this. And then he word for word recites what she said.
No doubt. And like, the best part is like when Bruce Lee kicks him in the chest and he falls to the ground. Try that again. Like, anybody who's ever told you to try that again, they've obviously got a counter move to, like, what are you doing, Bruce? Come at him with the left instead of the right. give him some change up here. He gives him the exact same thing and he just whips him into that car.
Yeah, that is great. But you watch it again when he kicks him. You watch Brad Pitt just kind of take it and fall down, and he looks like, and I don't know, I'm not a movie behind the scenes, official or anything, but he looks like I would imagine a stuntman would take a hit. You know what I mean?
Right.
He hits the ground, pops right back up like that was nothing. He falls down all the time. Oh, that was good.
I mean, even just before, like, you just listen to Bruce Lee do all this cocky bravado stuff. Like, he's sitting there just drinking a carton of milk in his wardrobe. I mean, just everything about the scene is, like, spot on because, like, basically Rick stuck his neck out for him to get him this job, and he couldn't even keep it together for 25 minutes. Like,
right.
He had to get into a fight with him. But that's one of my favorite scenes of the movie, as well as when Cliff goes to Spawn Ranch. But let's get to that ending because, like, as I said, like, it was such a big build-up.
Yeah.
Like, just when the door, like, first, just Rick Dalton going out there basically in his robe with his blender mixed margarita. And, like, he goes and he just tells these hippies to get out of there. And he's like, now back this out of here now.
Just yells at him, sucking that thing down. And, like, oh, Leo is just great. You know what I mean?
It was spectacular.
Spectacular. Most of the time, any show, any movie you watch, somebody trying to act like they're drunk is terrible, and you see right through it. Leonardo DiCaprio might have been drunk. You know what I mean? It was perfect. I was laughing so hard, just yelling at these dirty hippies. Like, gets right in his window too.
Like not shy at all. Like not scared of what could have happened. I mean, that's
looking out his window. It's a private road. What the, Loved it.
So it scares them away. They back down the driveway, and then they realize, like, dude, that was the dude from Bounty Law. And then they all start, like, talking in the car, like, how he used to have his lunchbox, how he was his favorite show, and all this stuff. And then the one girl in the back seat's like, yeah, instead of murdering that people, let's just go there. They're the fascists we need to get. They taught us how to kill. And you're sitting there, you're like, oh, man, Cliff Booth's about to have some fun in this deal. But, he's out for a walk with his dog, Brandy, and he's smoking his acid dip cigarette. So, like, for a second, you're like, dude, like, he might just be out of it. So, like, you're like, man, he might actually get beat. Like, this could be interesting.
Right. That's the fear you have. Like, oh, I don't want my favorite character to die because he happens to be smoking the one acid cigarette that he has for 6 months.
Right. Gets in. They start walking up the way. The one girl takes off in the car, so now they're up by themselves. They got to go take care of the business and basically try to, like, verbatim use the same game plan that they had in the original Family Manson murders, just in a different people, and walk in there and just Brad Pitt on the acid dip cigarette, just, like, freaking out, like, vroom, vroom.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's just like, wait a second, I know you. I remember your white little face.
Yeah. I remember that hair color.
You had a name like Rex.
And he's just giggly the whole time.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Just everything about that scene is hilarious.
Right.
But something bad's about to happen. Like, it's spot on, like, great. And just as we said before, the montage, like, he sicks his dog after the guy with the gun, and his dog is literally tearing that dude to shreds.
Yeah.
And then he throws the best spiral of a can into somebody's face to, like, just stop them. Like, she falls to the ground, like, her face is, like, already smushed.
Ugh.
And, the whole fight ensues, in which it is just the worst way you could die. Like, there's 3 ways in a row that you could die, and those are the 3 deaths of these people extreme. Like,
yeah.
Like, we already talked about the girl getting her face bashed in, which was just gruesome as all get out. But the look that when he was touching the knife in his hip, like, he was instantly mad, like, you're going to pay for this, and just
he taps it in. He taps it a few times.
In which it's just crazy. And then all of a sudden you get to, the other girl's, like, trying to run away, and she breaks through the glass, in which when she breaks through the glass, all the glass ends up in her face somehow. Like, like literally this girl is having the worst luck out of anybody else there.
Yeah, oh yeah, because she got torn apart by that dog. He sicked the dog on her for a minute too, with a quick snap of the fingers, which was great.
And Rick Dalton just listened to his headset, falls off, and then just one of those timely little moments where they put this little scene from a movie early on, the 14 Fists of McCluskey, where he used a flamethrower. For some reason, he kept the flamethrower.
Right.
In the backyard, just despite sheer luck.
And it still worked, thank God.
It just toasts her. And, just like that whole scene. And then, like, at the end, where the police get there and the other three are dead and Cliff's getting taken off in the ambulance and, like, they're just, like, chill. Like, they're not freaking out.
You go to sleep. Come see me tomorrow. Bring some bagels. I'll be in the hospital.
Like, just so nonchalant. And then finally, Rick Dalton gets to basically the whole movie. He wants to be a great movie star, and he thinks like Roman Polanski is like one of the bigger guys at that time. Like when I first heard the name Roman Polanski, I don't know who you are, and you're dressed like Austin Powers in the scene. Like I can't handle you for a minute.
Go ahead and Google that name, and you'll be like, oh. But
movies I'd watch, but gets to go
There's
up there.
More to that guy.
Like, I mean, everything about this movie was spot on for me. Like even the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't hear, like, if you're going to plan a movie in the 1960s, the only way I know as a human being, if it's in the 1960s, if you play Deep Purple Hush, and I instantly know it's the 60s. Like, the same thing for Bad Times at El Royale. They play that song, like, we're in the 60s. Like, I know the era.
Here we are.
So, that's kind of where you're at. But, I mean, they had some Bob Seger in there, like, Ramblin' Gamblin' Man, like just the soundtrack itself was getting me juiced up.
And Tarantino, like, not just the dialogue and the violence and the gore, but he's got some little things in his movies, like the soundtrack and the little things that they're doing, opening a pop can, how it zooms right in on the can and he pops it open, or the dog food, or on Django when he's filling up the beers behind the bar, Doc Schultz, you know what I mean? Where you just really get into it. You hear these little sounds and these little close-ups on stuff that to me, I love it. And I'm not a cinematography guy. I don't know these things, but I know I appreciate it.
Right. But for me, like, this was an instant classic. Like,
agreed. 100%.
Instant, like, there was two movies that came out in 2019 that slid up, and they both didn't win movie of the year in the Oscars or whatever. But, like, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood instantly went into the top 10. And then The Joker, which is another movie for another time to talk about, slid its way up there for me in the top 10 too. Like, this was just it was a fun movie to watch. Like, it's the slow build. There's comedy aspects in it to make you laugh, parts to make you feel uneasy, like a typical Tarantino movie. But it was great. I loved it.
I agree. It was great, and I loved it too. I like that it reminds you that you're at the movies. You know what I mean?
Right.
Some of these intense movies that you're watching, that if it's like intense and you're there and you want to make it seem real. But this one, it's kind of funny. It's got, like you said, Kurt Russell doing the narrating, and it, is a little ridiculous. It reminds you, I'm at the movies, I'm here to have a good time, and it did not disappoint. Let's just say that. I got a question for you. Where does it land on all-time Tarantino movies for you?
Inglourious Basterds is still really high up for me because I still think that's my favorite one. I would say it's in the top 3 now.
Okay.
Because I like Pulp Fiction, but I think Pulp Fiction gets this, like, it's the best movie ever made. A lot of people give that thing, and I'm like I really, really like Pulp Fiction. Like, it's top. But, like, I'm not a big fan of Reservoir Dogs. Like, I liked Reservoir Dogs, but I didn't, like, love it.
Great.
Same thing with like Hateful Eight, like, like I liked it. I thought there were some good parts to it, but that Inglourious Basterds to me, like, everything about that movie was being World War II and doing the Nazi stuff and all that kind of stuff. Like, it just instantly hit me like, this is great. And like he likes to do historically accurate things.
Accurate.
But like put his spin on it.
Yeah.
So I mean that's what makes it good.
I had to look up, like, did Hitler actually die in a theater like that? I have no idea. I didn't know.
Like, I love that movie. Like, just
I agree.
like, I like Django Unchained's up there. Like, I remember watching Django Unchained for the first time. I was like, this is a really good movie. Like, my wife does not like Quentin Tarantino movies because she's always scared of things, and anything with bloods and guts is gonna like creep her out. And in the Tarantino movie, it might be flying across a room and being crazy, like
And splatter on someone's face for
sure.
sure.
I would say like blood in Quentin Tarantino movies like shoot 15 feet. Like, it's one of those deals. But let's go to what the professionals say on their ratings here.
Okay.
The Rotten Tomato fresh score was 85%, which I feel is a little low. I would at least think it's in the 90s. But the audience score was 70%.
I fine, right? Like, I consider myself, and we've had conversations about this many times off camera. We're movie guys, you know. Quentin Tarantino made this movie for movie guys and girls, right? It's not just your average, and granted, it is because he's trying to make money on the thing, but we're going to appreciate it a little bit more. And I knew that watching it, like I said, my buddy I watched it with yesterday, he probably said, yeah, it was worth 2 hours of my time and left. So I don't care what the audience says. I don't care what anybody says. I thought it was great. And you got to trust Leonardo DiCaprio's instincts on something like this,
Right.
Is he going to star in a movie that's not great? I don't think so.
Now, before the entire Rona went down, I did take a trip to Los Angeles into the Hollywood area.
Yeah.
I toured some movie studios. Watching last night, it was the first time I watched it after coming back, so that was a couple months ago. I realized that I was in some of the locations that they were filmed. So, like where Paramount Studios is, like where he picks Cliff up from after the day of shooting, is right in the spot where you go in for the tour of the studio, which I thought was awesome. Because I can't remember if it was on that lot or Warner Brothers. The Mexican restaurant that Cliff and Rick go to is actually the restaurant that's right next to it. So
I wish I could remember the name, but yeah.
And I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, it is. Like, you look at it, and it's like a steakhouse that's frequented by many of celebrities because they have great food there now. And I think it's a barbecue joint.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
But like Tarantino, he spent like Hollywood Boulevard, just shoot the one scene where Rick not Rick, but Cliff goes through the whole thing. Like they renovated Hollywood Boulevard to look like 1969. Like 3 or 4 whole blocks. So, I mean, and they kept doing this on multiple things. Like they wanted to make it look like old Hollywood because he was like, this was his love story for Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. Hollywood people would probably appreciate it more than you or I. But granted, you've never been out there, but I could see, you can see that, you know what I mean? I can see what he's going for, which is awesome.
Well, that's what, I mean, you need to get yourself to Hollywood at some point and go on a movie tour and kind of get the idea of like how they actually shoot movies, and it kind of like blows your mind where you're like, oh my, like how, like this is ridiculous. Like what movie was I watching the other day? There's an Hail Caesar I watched. It was on Netflix, and it was based on them making a movie it's a comedy with the Coen brothers, but the guy gets the lead actor gets kidnapped, who's George Clooney, and they have a ransom out, but they kind of like go through the sets and like places, and like when you go on a movie set and you see how movies really get made, most of the movies today get made on location, not in the studio lots, but a lot of the parts in the old movies were made on the lots. So in that movie in Hollywood, you really see how they would shoot we saw the Western Town, like they would shoot the entire show that they would do there. I mean, it's the love of Hollywood and making movies, in which, other than football, movies is probably my next love. So, I mean, it's the same thing for you. Hockey's probably your number one, and then movies, right? I mean, me and you have talked so much movie and movie topics over the last 4 years. And the nice thing about it is, the reason why I got you on the podcast is you don't always agree with me with what's a good movie. So at least we agree on, I would say 75%, but then there's that 25% where you look at me and go, that's a kid's movie.
Well, the Marvel.
Yeah. Yes.
The poster in your background right now.
And I don't want you to get too upset about that because those are phenomenal films.
I'm sure they're great.
But I mean, you can suspend your belief for Batman, but you can't do it for the Avengers. I get it.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? The Caped Crusader's my guy.
Well, The Dark Knight is probably one or two movie of all time in my mind, but that's the difference. We could go maybe one day we give these people a little bit about our top 10. Now it takes a lot to make your top 10 because mine seems to have 50 movies in my top 10.
Well, it's impossible, right? You have to spend a year researching because you just forget one here or there. You know what I mean? You got to keep a running list at some point and reevaluate all this. But The Dark Knight. Here's the deal. I love things that live up to expectation. You know what I mean? LeBron James is supposed to be the best basketball player ever. He is, right? Sidney Crosby for hockey the same way. The Dark Knight coming out, it was supposed to be the greatest movie ever, and then it was. I just love things that live up to your expectations when they're very high. Yeah,
there's no doubt. But all right, man, we're about to go down a deep, dark tunnel where it could be. We talk about a lot of things that are different movies, but really enjoyed the conversation. Really glad you did your research because it's a lot easier to talk to somebody who doesn't just give me nothing to talk about. So appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Had a great time.
Once my brother hears this, he's going to ask why he wasn't invited to come talk on the show about movies. Maybe one time we get, 3 guys in here and we talk about a movie or, we go over lists or whatever we want to do. But appreciate your time, Matt, and you have a good day, man.
Thanks for having me, Travis. It was a great time, and you stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you when this whole thing's over on the golf course.
Sounds good, man. All right, let's get into the NFL draft. All right, it's going to be the first time, kind of a virtual NFL draft. I'm expecting technical difficulties across the board. They're expecting all these picks and all these kids to set up this equipment and nothing go off with a hitch. Just knowing how things go in the technical sense of things, nothing ever goes according to plan. So I expect there'll be some difficulties tonight. It was supposed to be in Las Vegas. It's really going to stink for those kids who don't get that opportunity to come out on that stage, kind of that big stage, usher you into the NFL. But we got to keep people safe out there. So just something we got to deal with. But let's go over. I want to go over the top 11. Okay, my New York Jets pick at number 11. I want to include 11 instead of 10. All right. Let's just kind of go down the line 1 through 11 here. These are the teams we're going to pick in this order as of right now. Cincinnati Bengals, Washington Redskins, Detroit Lions, the New York Giants, Miami Dolphins, the LA Chargers, the Carolina Panthers, the Arizona Cardinals, Jacksonville Jaguars, the Cleveland Browns, and the New York Jets. I expect there to be some trades within this top 11. I'll get into my own personal Jets pick, what I expect to happen, but we'll get into that. But at number 1, I think without a question, without a doubt, Burrow is going to be the number 1 pick. All right, I just don't see anybody else. You don't let a guy like Joe Burrow fall. Okay, you pick Joe Burrow is what you do. Okay. Andy Dalton has served his purpose in the league. He's not a top-tier guy. I think Joe Burrow has the ability to be a top guy in the NFL. He won't be at first. And there's nobody who starts the NFL at quarterback that's just the best quarterback ever. All right, but he's got a shot. All right, so I think Joe Burrow at number 1, without question, without doubt. All right, number 2. All right, the Redskins sit on number 2. This one's crazy. I think there's going to be a lot of trade value here. I think they could still get it. I think they could trade back and still get a pick unless they really want Chase Young. Chase Young is the second or first best prospect in the draft from Ohio State. He is a monster defensive end. He can do a lot of different things for you. He can make a lot of things happen. Could they trade back? I could see that happening. But let's just keep moving on, all right? Number 3, Jeff Okudah from Ohio State. They're really, really high on Jeff Okudah, saying he is one of the top rated corners of just looking at through the draft of all time. I mean, I wouldn't go that extreme. I mean, there's Deion Sanders in the world and Darrelle Revis is out in the world who are very high caliber as well. But he's a very good corner. He's the best in the draft. He will be a top 5 pick for sure. Number 4, Isaiah Simmons. He's a linebacker from Clemson. Now, this guy, he could do a lot of different things. He can play a lot of different positions. He can play linebacker. He can play defensive end. Hell, he could even play nickel out there. I mean, this kid is athletic. He can run. He is violent. He's the best linebacker in the draft. Whatever team is looking to get him will be very satisfied, all right? Number 5, all right, Tua, the quarterback from Alabama. If I could say his last name correctly, I would say it, but I'm going to refer to him as Tua, all right? Just about everybody else in the community out there just knows him as Tua, so I think it's acceptable. A lot of people think Tua's going to drop. I think if trades start happening, he could end up in a top 5 pick situation, especially with Miami sitting there at 5. I don't see the Detroit Lions taking him at 3. They really, they got Stafford. They're set there right now, unless they want to build for the future. But Tua is the next best quarterback after Burrow. He had a very successful career, got hurt. I expect him to go in the top 10. A lot of people think that he's going to slip out of the top 10. I think a guy with that talent, that caliber, I just can't see that happening. Number 6 in talent base, Derek Brown. All right, he's a D tackle from Auburn. He's a very physical player, rated as the highest inside D lineman of the draft. He's pretty good. All right, number 7. All right, the tackles in this class this is a very strong tackle class for the NFL. I mean, there is 3. We might see 4 or 5 offensive tackles get picked off the board today. And that makes me excited as an offensive line coach. I want to see the big guys, especially with these high draft picks. I remember back in the day when the Jets drafted DeBrickashaw Ferguson at 4. Didn't even look back. Like, that was one of the greatest picks they've ever made. He was a very talented player for a long time. And later on in that draft, they drafted Nick Mangold at pick 28. Picked 2 old linemen in their 2 number 1 overall draft picks. And both those guys were staples for him for a long time. But we'll get into that. But Mekhi Becton, I think, is the best tackle prospect out of the group. All right, he's from Louisville. He's got size. He's got ability. He's strong with the run game. He can pass protect. I think he's the most well-rounded out of them all. But next in with Jedarick Wills, at 8 here, he's the tackle from Alabama. A lot of people, one person I was talking to go, man, he plays right tackle. How can he be one to go in the top, 10? And I was like, man, you got to realize Tua is a left-handed quarterback. So if you're the right tackle with a left-handed quarterback, you are the best tackle on the team. Okay. If they had a right-handed quarterback, I guarantee you would have been playing left tackle. But somebody's got to protect that blind side, and that's what Jedarick Wills did for him. I think he's a hell of a player too. I think he's got some intangibles, but I still think Mekhi Becton is a tad bit better. At 9, in talent-wise, I see Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver from Alabama. That kid can scoot. That kid can make a lot of different catches. He can make a difference in his first year wherever he goes. I'm excited about him. And at 10, another quarterback from Oregon here. We got Justin Herbert, all right? Guy, that hometown kid from Oregon who played in the same town that he got to go to college in. It's a Cinderella story for that kid. But he is a very good prospect too. I know there's going to be 3 or 4 quarterbacks taken tonight, but I don't see Herbert getting taken till later on. I just think these are my 10 in the talent level of what I see as the top 10. But let me get into what I know. What I mostly know because I pay attention to the New York Jets. That is the team that I follow. A lot of them, they want us to take the wide receiver there, Jeudy from Alabama, which the thing about the Jets is we got a lot of holes to fill in right now. And I think the biggest hole that's sitting there is offensive line. They were atrocious last year at protecting. I guarantee you they didn't have the same starting lineup for consistent weeks. Like when you got to jumble the O-line every week, it's very difficult for those 5 guys up front to play congruently and to play together. You really learn how to play with each other when you get that familiar, with each other, where you guys play. You don't even need to make calls. You know what that person's going to do. Things happen like that. But I want to see, the Jets can do one of two things. With multiple holes that they got to fill, they can either take the best tackle available, which if Mekhi Becton is sitting there, I would expect for them to draft him. I hope he's sitting there. That's the pick that I want to see at number 11. I think he would be a staple in the league. I think he could be another DeBrickashaw Ferguson. I think he could be somebody that's going to be reliable and very talented. I think that's more important than wide receiver at this point. But what else the Jets could do? I mean, they could trade back. If somebody, let's say Becton's not available, he gets drafted. Let's just say tackles start flying off the board before 11 even gets to pick 11. I think that if the tackles are gone, that you really are the premier tackles. Do not just draft the number 27th best player who could be another offensive tackle. Look at what we can do. Can we trade back? Can we gain picks? With so many holes, we need to see how many picks we can get. Because you got to get some wide receiver. You got to get some offensive linemen. You still need another pass rusher out there. Somebody to really make a mark. There's just some things that, are on the list of things to get, but you only got X amount of picks, which the Jets are in good shape. I mean, I think they got 8 picks right now, a few third-round selections, a second round, and a first round. So they're going to get some really good, talented guys, but they need to fill in the holes that, last year was a very underachieved year for the Jets, if you ask me. Didn't get the Le'Veon Bell push we were all hoping for. I thought Le'Veon Bell coming in, we're going to run the ball like nobody's business. With the inconsistency of that offensive line, him really with the rust of playing the game showed he couldn't just take over a game, make people miss. He had a very difficult time running the ball. And, he was a pass threat when he was with the Steelers, so, we didn't get to see a whole lot of that happen either. But when you got a man like Sam Darnold back there, who's a guy who he's got the respect of some of the older guys in the league. Aaron Rodgers even likes this kid, all right? You need to find a way to protect him. He can do special things if we can protect him. Do need to get him a wide receiver. I mean, we got some good receivers in Crowder. Lost Robbie Anderson. Got a few things. You got, Quincy Nunez out there. He's really good. But you need somebody who can really take the top off of defense. If they can find that, if Jeudy, if he's available, you take him just because he's the best there. But if you trade back, get more value, I can see some sense in that. But the Jets need to get healthy as well. I mean, with both inside backers getting hurt last year, Avery Williamson, who they've been trying to trade for a while, he's one of the better linebackers of the game when they picked him up in free agency. As well as C.J. Mosley. It was hurt, not hurt, groin issue. I mean, we just kept going back and forth. That guy playing the game's a big, big difference. I think they filled in some good holes so far in free agency with the offensive line, as well as they had some good, re-signed some good people as well. But they got a little ways to go. But the NFL drafts tonight. Get excited. It's going to be different. I hope the picks don't take forever now. That the worst thing about the NFL draft has always been sitting there waiting forever for picks to come in. All right. My preach to you guys out there: the only time you should take that much clock is if you're shopping your pick. Otherwise, I mean, you should have you had months and months of preparation for this. If one guy gets taken here and you're gonna you just subtract him off your board, what's the next available? All right, what were we looking for? What holes do we need to fill? It doesn't take 10 to 15 minutes to figure out what you're going to do. All right, especially in your top 5. The top 5 picks should just be listed, standing in a row going, pick 1, Joe Burrow. Pick 2, Chase Young. I mean, just go, go, go. I mean, there's no question who people are drafting usually in these top. Unless you get the Raiders, they always go completely out of nowhere with some pick nobody's ever heard of. Tune in for the draft. I mean, this is going to drop on Friday, so the draft's all weekend. You get all 7 rounds. It'll be intriguing. Night 1's kind of the big night, and then once you get into those later rounds is really when you start getting some guys you might not talk about in year 1, but by year 2 and 3, you're going to find some guys in that round that are going to be big-time players for you down the line. I mean, you can go through the countless picks, people who weren't picked in the first round. You could go to even free agency signing guys that made rosters compared to guys drafted in the first round. The only thing that happens in the first round, you get drafted, you get a better paycheck than the guys that don't. Doesn't give you consistency in the NFL. So I know you guys are getting this dropped on you on Friday. So basically, you guys will be able to make fun of me by the time this podcast drops on tomorrow. You guys will have a chance to see pre-draft what I thought, and maybe I'll even give you guys a little reaction next podcast of how upset or how happy I am with what the Jets did. But that's tonight. Starts at 7 o'clock. Coverage starts at 7, as well as I'll be watching all weekend. So let's start wrapping up the podcast. We're going to go into our final 2 staples here, is what I like to call them in the podcast, where I have these always at the end. But let's start with the Netflix movie of the week. This week I'm going to nominate Inglourious Bastards. Me and Matt Marchel talked about it earlier in the podcast when we were talking about Quentin Tarantino movies. It's on Netflix. It's a good watch. It's violent. If that's up your alley, go and watch it. Thoroughly, I believe you would enjoy it. All right, now let's get into 3 and out. All right, first down. NFL Game Pass, people. I can't say this enough. It's still free right now to the end of May. All right, get on there. Okay, just last week I watched the 2010 divisional game, the New York Jets versus the New England Patriots. One of my favorite games of all time. Okay, nobody believed the Jets are going to win this game. All right, they win this game. They go to the second straight AFC Championship game in 2 years. They go out. Mark Sanchez was the cue, guys. They go out. Defense plays out of their mind. Shuts down Tom Brady. Get the W. David Harris gets a huge pick within the first minute. Don't even score on that opportunity. Don't get me started on that. But it was a really good game. It was made famous by Bart Scott, where at the end he did the feel great, can't wait moment when he flew in his airplane, talked to Sal Paolantonio, and had a good conversation. One of the best interviews. You can go watch that if you want to. Go on YouTube, look up Bart Scott interview with Sal Paolantonio, and watch the remix music video. All right, second down. Okay, Apple, I'm talking to you. All right, I go to the grocery store. I got my mask on. I got to go look at my grocery list. Okay, let's make up. Let's get a patch through, so I don't have to enter my number and keep touching my phone. I just want you to recognize the top part of my face and say open. Okay, it's the most annoying thing when I'm looking around trying to get my grocery list and everybody's looking around at me like, is this guy going to pull down his mask or is he going to punch in the numbers? All right. We live in 2020. Give me that technology. You guys got some time on your hands. Okay, third down. Madden League update. All right, the Jets are sitting at 3-1. Had a first, lost to Coach Alaskis in week 1. Kind of a BS kind of game. He should thank the computer for a lot. But just beat my buddy Pete. Pete Man I Easy got walloped by the New York Jets. Huge day for the running back. Pete, I know you're having a hard time dealing with that loss, but you got to move on. We're into week 4 or week 5 now. You got to move on, bud. Also, the Bears, all right? One of the worst teams in the league last year. For some reason, they are throwing out the most ridiculous numbers defensively I've ever seen. Are they for real? Are they not? All right? We'll find out what the Chicago Bears got. The Dallas Cowboys, stinking as usual. They're terrible. Maybe the worst team in the league. But hey, that's 3 and out. Thanks for tuning into the TW podcast. Tune in next week. Have a good one.